Michelle from Michelle Loves Books. Welcome back to my channel. Today is the unpopular opinion tag. I love this tag. I love seeing everyone's different opinions on different things. So let's get into it. A popular series that you do not like. This is The Cruel Prince. They just released the third book in the series, and I've only read the first one, and I listened to it on audiobook, to be fair. But I feel like everyone loves this book, and I just don't. This is a story about human girls, three sisters, who were kidnapped by a fairy who killed their mother right in front of them. He took them to the fairy realm to live with him, where they are outcasted for being human. They are caught, or at least our main character Jude is caught in a really tough decision to leave the fairy realm and live in the human world again, but they have no idea how to get by in the human world because obviously they have been living in the fairy world their whole lives. So they really wouldn't have any idea of what to do. Or they can stay in the fairy realm where everything just sucks because they're pretty much hated there. I really just didn't like Jude, the main character. I found her extremely irritating. Inconsistent, she was hating her life, but then yet strives for acceptance in the fairy realm and wants to make something of herself. She ends up, I don't want to spoil it, but she winds up going through these series of events that lands her into this position, and it happens way too fast for me. It seems like there was a lot of different things going on, and I felt like there were some storylines that got started and just weren't followed through on. We just jumped over them and went on to this other storyline. She also knows how fairies are. While they can't lie, they are still really untrustworthy. And yet she falls way too quickly for this fairy boy. And that was one of those things that it started really fast, it ended really fast, and then we just were moving on to something completely different. Also, the Cruel Prince just wasn't cruel, in my opinion. I mean, he was cruel because he was a bully. I just expected it to be a lot more disturbingly dark, but it was just really childish. Towards the end, I just lost it when he revealed why he's picking on her, and I don't know, man. I really just don't understand this popularity. Question number 2. A popular book or series that everyone else seems to hate, but you love. This is gonna be Twilight. And I know not everyone hates it. A lot of people love it, but I choose this one because people who loved it when they were reading it years ago when they came out claim now that it's like a guilty pleasure or a what the hell was I thinking? But I still love this series as much as I ever did. Question number 3, a love triangle where the main character ended up with a person you did not want them to end up with. I think my feelings on this one are pretty in sync with the popular opinion when I say Mal from the Grisha trilogy. Honestly, I don't really have a problem with Mal as a character and his role in the story. At first, I was really rooting for him until I kind of looked at it again in retrospect after reading the series. He's a lifelong best friend of our main character, Alina. They grew up together and she's been crushing on him her whole life, but he never notices Alina, and he's quite the ladies' man himself. Until Alina's talents emerge, she winds up saving Mal, and then he starts to notice her, as well as the rest of the country, including the Darkling, who showed a romantic interest in her. I mostly just have a problem with Mal for only wanting her after her powers emerge, after she's special. And that's just kind of messed up. And then he just can't deal later on with the fact that she's not the same Alina and he just wants her to go back to being the same Alina. But I can't say that I hate his character. I feel like it's a unique dynamic, especially with him kind of struggling with his emotions over Alina as well. And really it's Alina's fault as well for, not picking up on that herself, but her emotions really run strong. So overall, I just feel like I like his character in the sense that it offers a really great dynamic to the story, but I honestly just feel like Alina is just better off on her own. Question number 4, a popular book genre that you hardly reach for. For this one, I'm probably going to have to say horror. Not that I wouldn't if a book sounded interesting enough. There's probably several reasons behind this. One being that I just don't know where to start. I have heard that Dean Koontz is a really good author. And obviously Stephen King, he's been on my radar. I keep wanting to eventually pick up one of his books. But I've been thinking about it a lot more recently, but since Halloween and everything, because I was looking for like some spooky books for the season. Now that I think about Stephen King more, I haven't really been that impressed with his movies, and they just really don't appeal to me. So I'm starting to think that I really don't see myself picking up one of the books, because like if I didn't like the movie, I get a lot of my book recommendations from other booktubers. And I guess maybe the booktubers that I watch just don't read a lot of horror either. And so I'm really not getting a sense that a certain book is recommended, or that, kind of exposure to different books that maybe I'd be interested in. So I'm just really not sure. That being said, if there's a popular horror book that you really like and you would recommend to me, go ahead and drop it in the description box below. And question number 5, a popular beloved character that you don't like. This one's definitely going to have to be the Darkling. I really just don't understand why fans swoon over him. I guess he makes a pretty epic villain. I just don't picture him as like my type of sexy in my head, or swoon worthy. And I'm just not attracted to the power hungry, manipulating, cradle robbing, dream stalker man-child with mommy issues. Question number 6, a popular author that you can't seem to get into. I'm probably gonna get a lot of flack for this, but Taylor Jenkins Reid. Honestly, don't get me wrong, she's a really talented writer. For me, it's solely subject matter. That's just not my forte. She's the author of 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which follows the glamorous lifestyle of a movie star and her marriages to 7 men. The question being who she loved most. There's LGBTQ rep, diversity, politics of the showbiz, women empowerment, racial discrimination issues. Those are all so wonderful things, so I can definitely see why this is an important book for a lot of people. But once the big reveal was declared, I just decided that I didn't need to know more. So I technically DNF'd this book. And it was actually unintentional, because I had checked it out on audiobook. I hadn't listened to it, and it got like automatically returned, and I just didn't go back and recheck it out to finish it up. She also wrote a new release this year called Daisy Jones and the Six, which follows a rock band of the 70s who partners up with Daisy Jones. They record an album, they go on tour, there's substance abuse and drama, there are some really good quotes and lots of women empowerment. So again, another important book, especially for a piece that takes place in the 70s. So that was really great. But I was just overall really bored with the story. Every musician story ever told is addicted to drugs and alcohol. And the whole showbiz side of rising to fame and recording an album and going on tour, the whole sex, drugs, and rock and roll aspect, I'm just so bored with that story. So for me, there's just nothing really new or enlightening about that. She does have other books that I would definitely be interested in checking out. These 2 just happen to be really popular on BookTube, so I wanted to read them to see what all the hype was about. And I can definitely see why other people like it. I think it was Books and Lala that made me realize this trend about my own reading style, or my own reading habits and tastes, because she did a couple of videos about like what she likes and dislikes. She did say that she just doesn't like books about famous people, and I guess I never really thought about it that way, and I guess I didn't have enough reference to go off of, but it just so happens that there are 2 books I read about famous people that I just don't care for, and it made sense to me too, because even in movies, there was a recent movie that came out, typical love story, drugs and alcohol abuse, falling off the bandwagon, all that kind of stuff. Like, well, he had some other issues too, but I forget which one it is. I'll try to remember and put it up here. But there was that new movie, and I just was not impressed with it. So, and I think for me, another subject matter I don't care for that much is substance abuse. So moving on, question number 7, a popular book trope that you are tired of seeing. Now, there's not really any tropes that I love or hate. I just think that they can be done well, or they can be done poorly. But to answer this question, I really don't care for instances where the characters sacrifice themselves for love. It's just a really dramatic way to express your feelings for somebody. And in many instances where I've read it, I feel like the relationships just weren't built up enough. The characters really, in retrospect, didn't know each other that well. So just playing into the excessively dramatic scenario is just really fast-paced for someone to leap off the top of a building in the name of love. And I just believe that people are more realistically prone to better self-preservation. Even in a fantasy where things aren't meant to be realistic, I think the core beliefs and motivations of people should basically stay the same. I would just like our authors to not put our characters in such situations that drive them into this only solution, or give the characters a loophole that they can discover. Question number 8. A popular series that you have no interest in reading. This is gonna have to be Me Before You. This one I really had to think about for a little bit because I won't ever say that like I just won't read a book. And if people really like it, there's usually a reason behind it. So I would generally give it a shot. But this one's going to have to be Me Before You by Jojo Moyes. The movie was hard-hitting enough. I ugly cried over that movie. It was so sad. And I really just don't like being heartbroken. I already know what happens. I don't need to now read the book to get the story. I also don't see how they continued the story into, I believe they're on the 4th book now. But yeah, I'll likely never pick up those books. And lastly, question number 9. The saying goes that the book is always better than the movie. What movie or TV adaptation do you prefer more than the book? I could actually say a few different ones for this, and maybe that'll be a future video idea, but I'll go ahead and say my most recent read, which was Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. The book was sadly very disappointing. I was anticipating reading that book for a really long time. I'd really expected to like it, so I think that when it didn't live up to my expectations, that played into how disappointing it was for me. So I immediately went and watched the 8-episode mini-series that they made, and it was a lot better. I mean, it was still really dramatic as the book was. Like, it did actually add some things to the show that I felt like filled in some of the holes and fixed some of the problems that I had with the book. There was actually a few instances where, oh my god, what is her name? Our main character was talking to the detective at the police station, and not the detective, she was talking to somebody at the police station, the officer at the police station. And I remember just like long, lengthy dialogue and just back and forth, and they weren't really impactful lines. And so it just felt like it really didn't add anything to the story, to the investigation, to our characters. So a lot of that was also fixed in the TV series because like, I guess it's just different when you're reading all the dialogue versus just like listening to it, because you have the characters on screen to watch them, you know, what they're doing while they're talking and stuff like that. Turn it into the TV show, that was fixed for me as well. That wraps up this book tag. Thank you for watching. Bye!